Welcome to Glove Talk, your weekly news in boxing. New episodes every Sunday. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. With that said, let's talk boxing. So as always, we're going to start with the lightest weight class and then move up to the heavier weight classes. So first, we're going to be talking about Charlie Edwards signing a new deal with Frank Warren. He was with Matchroom with Eddie Hearns, but has decided to move over to Frank Warren. Frank Warren talking now about how he believes Charlie Edwards could be a champion again. It looks like Charlie's going to try to move up in weight class a little bit, possibly even go up to bantamweight. I'd see this be quite difficult for Charlie to get a belt at these weight classes. You have a lot of competition there. You have guys like Chocolate Tito, guys like Estrada, and it's possibly even Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux is talking about going down to 118 like we were talking about last week in episode 2. So I think that'd be quite challenging for Charlie to do that, but who knows, he's still fairly young. Moving on from Charlie Edwards, we're going to be moving into Ryan Garcia now, talking about the fact that he won't be able to fight Jorge Linares. Linares seems to be stuck in Japan and with the travel restrictions would not be able to make a July 4th fight. We're hearing people like Abner Miras now being mentioned as a possible opponent for Ryan Garcia. I don't really love that. I know that Miras is a 3-weight world champion, but he is considerably smaller, and I think for Ryan Garcia, he could use his size and length to his advantage, and I want to see him fight someone that's been a little bit more active. Miras has been inactive for 2 years due to eye injury, and so for me, I want to see someone that I think could actually challenge Ryan Garcia and that's been active and is a little bit more a natural lightweight size rather than an Abner Miras. Also talking about Ryan Garcia, he was talking about Teofimo Lopez and saying that he's desperate. I don't really think this is a good look for Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia hasn't really fought anybody of note, and Teofimo Lopez did just beat Richard Comey for the IBF title and is looking now to try to unify with Vasily Lomachenko. I think, quite honestly, I would love to see a Ryan Garcia fight someone like a Richard Comey, someone that has a name and has even won a belt before. I think for Ryan Garcia to kind of throw some shade at Teofimo Lopez is not really that smart, considering that I think Teofimo Lopez has had better opposition, especially as of late compared to Ryan Garcia. Now moving from that, we're going to be moving to Devin Haney. Devin Haney looks like he might be fighting someone like a Luke Campbell. Great fight. I would absolutely love to see Devin Haney fight Luke Campbell. I think that we could definitely make this happen, especially with both of them having Eddie Hearns and Matchroom behind them as promotion. I think for Devin Haney, this would be a good step up in opponent. We'd get to understand where he kind of stands in this weight division a little bit more. I think also for him, he would get to kind of fight someone that's naturally a little bit larger, and that's good because he's now talking about within a year plus from now going up in weight. Now, I think for him to talk about being at 154, I think that's a little bit much. I would kind of want to slow down a little bit. I mean, you're talking about guys at 140, someone like Jose Ramirez or Josh Taylor that would also be there for him to fight at 140. I think at 147, where you start getting towards guys like Spence, guys like Porter, Danny Garcia, Manny Pacquiao. I mean, you have a ton of people there, as well as even guys, someone like a Maurice Hooker who lost to Jose Ramirez not too long ago. There's a lot of competition there for him, and to talk about someone like a 154, you're getting in the area of a Jared Hurd, who's naturally more towards that middleweight. So I think for him, Devin Haney, I believe, is not even 5'10 in size. We'll see how he kind of develops. He's still young and he could put on the weight naturally and be more muscular, but we'll see what happens. I don't think he wants to really fight guys at that weight class within the next couple of years. I think maybe in 3 to 4 years we could let's talk about it then, but let's start with trying to get past those 140 and 147 weight class guys, especially that welterweight. That welterweight is stout. Someone like a Earl Spence, who's naturally much larger than normal at that welterweight, could give you quite a bit of problems, and I'd like to see how someone like a Devin Haney develops a little bit more, see how his body naturally develops and where he goes from there. Moving on from him, we're going to be now talking about Jose Ramirez, like we were just talking about at 140. He's talking about fighting how he would love to fight Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. I understand that right now for Jose Ramirez, that does make a lot of sense, considering that Jose Ramirez has kind of proven himself. I think if he's going to fight them, he should fight him now, because in a couple of years from now, Jose Ramirez, I think, would maybe have some issues with either Teofimo Lopez or a Devin Haney, especially as they develop as young prospects. I do love seeing this though, him talking about fighting Josh Taylor, especially in the UK. I think Josh Taylor needed someone else to fight other than a Prograis, which he just fought not too long ago and did very well against, and kind of proved himself as that kind of king at 140. Let's see if we can get this kind of unification bout done, and I would love to see who wins here. I think that Josh Taylor and Ramirez, this would be a really interesting fight to see, so let's see what happens there first. Now we're moving up in weight class, and I threw this in because quite frankly I often feel quite bad for Adrian Broner. I have these moments where I see people making memes of him and trash talking him and kind of always pointing out his shortcomings, and I have this soft spot where eventually I kind of feel bad for Adrian Broner, and then, well, he does this and I don't feel bad for him anymore, and I remember why everyone makes fun of Adrian Broner and why he's kind of, well, why he's a meme in boxing right now, and that's because he's looking for $10 million. Yeah, you're not going to get that. I mean, you already had a fight with Manny Pacquiao. That's about as good as you're going to get for a payday, and I don't think Adrian Broner is going to be fighting anytime soon, so, you know, get working on that rap career, I guess. So also moving on to active fighters, we're going to be talking about Keith Thurman here, talking about how he wants to fight Manny Pacquiao again and get that rematch. I don't see that happening. I think Keith needs to get a win first, maybe a major win, before he starts fighting against someone like a Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is going to find people that he feels like are a good dance partner and someone that he probably can beat, and I think he saw that opportunity with Keith coming back after not being active after his hand surgery and being laid off from, you know, injury like that. I think, you know, Manny Pacquiao saw this as he'll have some ring rust and I can definitely take him on. So for Manny Pacquiao, I don't see this being an opportunity that he really needs to explore. I see him fighting someone that he feels more comfortable with rather than a Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman also, though, talking about how he would be able to train Jameis Winston and make Jameis Winston a boxer. I saw the footage of this, and quite honestly, Jameis Winston should just stick to football. It was not very impressive. I don't see that happening. It was interesting, though, to kind of see Jameis Winston try something different. Obviously, this is totally foreign to him, I believe, and it was interesting to see Keith Thurman being the trainer and coach in this situation and giving instruction to Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston didn't look very comfortable throwing ones and twos and kind of moving in the ring all that much. But one thing I did notice with this, Keith Thurman was actually a very good trainer and coach. He was very patient and had very good insight and direction. I'd love to see Keith Thurman, maybe after he's done his boxing career, move into this trainer role. Now moving on, we're going to be talking about Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia, I'm really happy to see Danny Garcia make this kind of statement, because Terrence Crawford came out and said, look, I don't want to fight Spence on his first fight back after the accident. I don't want to win that fight, because if I do win that fight, everyone's going to say, well, you beat Spence. It's just him coming back and he's going to have ring rust, and obviously he's not the same because of the car accident. And I like that Danny Garcia is putting the ball back in Spence's court and saying, look, if I beat you, it's legit. I don't want to hear any excuses, and if you're going to make excuses, let's not have the fight right now. I think this is a smart move for Danny Garcia, because I think that's the number one thing people are going to go to if Danny Garcia wins this fight against Earl Spence. And I think from a standpoint of how Danny Garcia sees himself at this weight class, he needs to make sure that he does get the respect for beating Earl Spence if he does. Now, if he gets beat by Earl Spence, obviously people are going to look at it and say, well, yeah, Earl Spence should beat him. I think for Danny Garcia, I think this is a really smart PR move, and it's really smart in general to promote the fight, because it basically puts the ball back in Earl Spence's corner and say, look, are you really ready, or are you going to make excuses? I'm not just here for a warm-up fight and then excuses later. I want to make sure that I'm getting the best version of you. Now, moving on to middleweight, we see that Chris Eubank Jr. talking about fighting Canelo and Triple G. I don't see the Canelo fight happening for Chris Eubank Jr. I think Canelo is preoccupied and already has kind of plans for this year. I think he's looking at more fighting a Billy Joe Saunders and then possibly fighting Triple G. We've heard about that happening. If not that, I could see Canelo going up to super middle, maybe fighting someone like a Callum Smith. I just don't think Chris Eubank Jr. is going to get the fight this year with Canelo, but I could see possibly Chris Eubank Jr. fighting Triple G in a December time frame. I think that would be a very interesting fight. And what I like about this for Chris Eubank Jr. is that, look, Chris Eubank Jr. has always been a fairly skilled fighter, but I think that he wasn't able to truly focus and truly get the best version of himself from the trainers he was with, whether there be issues in the gym or talking about training himself. Now with Roy Jones Jr., I think we're gonna get the best version of Chris Eubank Jr. And on top of that, I think we're gonna get a Triple G that is starting to slow down. And we saw that with Devchenko in particular, with those body shots that Devchenko was using against Triple G. Triple G did not look the same as he did before. And I think a lot was taken out of him from those two fights with Canelo, and then with that Devchenko fight. I think we saw that Triple G can be beat possibly now. I don't know about being knocked out, but we certainly can see him be outpointed and slowed down. So if you're Chris Eubank Jr., you're taking this opportunity to say, hey, I'm at the best version of myself. I have Roy Jones Jr. training me right now. I don't know if you're going to get much better when it comes to trainers. This is a great chance for Chris Eubank Jr. to move himself up to more that elite level at the middleweight. And I think if he can get this fight, it'd be a huge fight for him. It'd be a great opportunity. Speaking of people that want to fight Triple G and have been rumored to have possible matches with Triple G, there's talk about Jaime Munguia being able to knock out Triple G. Beltran saying that he thinks that Jaime Munguia would be able to do this. I don't know if that's possible, but I'll tell you what, Jaime Munguia is a very interesting young fighter. The thing that's interesting about Jaime Munguia to me is that he's 23 years old and he's already had 35 professional fights. That is quite the record for a 23-year-old. And he did come up to middleweight. He was fighting, I believe, at 154 for quite a while. Fought Dennis Hogan, and people thought that was quite controversial. But that being said, like I said, he's 23 years old. He can develop, and I think he will naturally grow into the size he is. There was rumors of him possibly fighting Canelo last year. I didn't like that. I thought that Jaime Munguia was just a little bit too unproven and a little bit too young to fight someone like a Canelo. And if you're Golden Boy, why would you want to kind of use Jaime Munguia as a sacrificial lamb to someone like a Canelo? I would want Jaime Munguia to be in my stable for a while, and I wouldn't want him to lose any of those possible fans that he's gaining through being at Golden Boy. And I think that this could be an opportunity. You know, if you're young and he truly believes he can be Triple G, I don't think he can. I would probably still give the edge to Triple G. I think Triple G is just a little bit too battle hardened, a little bit more proven than Jaime Munguia. That said, Jaime Munguia does have youth on his side, and he also is a very large size for the middleweight. So we'll see what happens here. Let's see who ends up being the dance partner for Triple G later this year. Triple G already has, I believe, a dance partner for his next fight back. Buatsi talking about how he needs to be ready for a Beterbiev or Bivol. I think this is a great statement for him to make. I think he realizes that he really hasn't been tested and really hasn't fought anyone that could really prepare him for either one of them. His last fight was against Ryan Ford, who I believe is 17-6 in his late 30s. He's certainly going to need to kind of step up his caliber of opponents if he wants to step up to that more elite level. With that said, I think this is a nice opportunity for him to fight someone like a Callum Johnson. Callum Johnson, if you remember, against Beterbiev was a interesting fight. I think that Callum Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, took it a little bit later and was kind of saw it as an opportunity to make a name for himself. If you watch that fight, I just rewatched it not too long ago, and in that fight, Callum Johnson though just absolutely got beat down by Beterbiev. If you look at Callum Johnson's face compared to Beterbiev's, I mean, it looked like he was getting beat pretty bad. That said, I think Callum Johnson also knocked down Beterbiev, I believe, in the second round. So, you know, he was able to land a few punches there on Beterbiev. Beterbiev, though, just kept on coming forward and just didn't care. So I think this would be a great opportunity for Buatsi to see where he is and kind of be able to judge his performance off of Callum Johnson on whether or not he thinks he's ready for someone like a Bivol or a Beterbiev. Now moving on, we're going to be moving to heavyweight. Abel Sanchez talking about Gassiev and talking about fighting Andy Ruiz or Kanaki. I don't really think that's going to happen right off the bat. I forgot that even Gassiev was going to be moving up to heavyweight because he hasn't fought since fighting Alexander Usyk. So I think for Gassiev, I think it's great that he is moving up because I think he's naturally more in that heavyweight division in terms of size. He's 6'4", and he was having issues making cruiserweight, which was below 200 pounds. I want to see what weight he decides to to fight at. I want to see if he's more in that 215 to 225 range. I think that's probably where he'd be at. And I'd like to see who he would fight. I think someone more in the range of an Oscar Rivas could be possible. I think someone more in the Gerald Washington or Charles Martin would be definitely possible. Maybe even a Otto Wallin would be possible for him to fight. I don't know, but I want to see who he ends up pairing up with. I don't think he's gonna get someone like an Andy Ruiz. I think Andy Ruiz is more focused on guys in the top 10. That said, Gassiev is, I believe, only 27 years old, so he does have some time to develop and really kind of see where that landscape of heavyweight kind of ends up. Also, speaking of guys that are very interesting in this kind of heavyweight landscape, we have Otto Wallin now talking about fighting someone like a White or an AJ. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Otto Wallin really brings in the tickets or the fans when it comes to a heavyweight in the heavyweight division. I think Otto Wallin had his moment in the sun in his 15 minutes of fame with Tyson Fury and put on a very good display, but I think he needs to kind of slow his roll a little bit and fight a few more guys and maybe get a few more wins, some big wins before he starts fighting someone like that that's a little bit more name brand and elite. So moving on, we're talking about David Price now, talking about that, you know, he's earned the right to decide when he's going to retire. I think this is a fair statement, but at the same time, you know, David Price has taken quite a bit of punishment as a heavyweight, and I would like to see him retire sooner rather than later. David Price is 36 years old and he has been knocked out in 4 of his last 8 fights. So I hope that, you know, he does decide to have a few more fights if he's going to have them, and I hope they're very strategically placed and so he can make enough money. You know, I hope that he decides to retire soon just purely for his health, because he does have a life after boxing, and with some of the knockouts he's had, especially that Povetkin knockout, that was brutal, and that's going to definitely leave some damage later on in life. So let's see where he goes from here. Now, this is something that has been talked about now for a couple weeks, and at first I didn't really pay much attention to it because these kind of things, you know, will be rumors, or that people talk about, would it be interesting to have this UFC guy versus this boxer and see what happens. But this one actually seems like it's gaining traction the more people talk about it, and that's White versus Francis Ngannou. I didn't really think this was going to turn into something, but now it's turning into something more and more. And Francis Ngannou apparently had got some pretty decent hands according to Joe Joyce's manager and stuff like that. Watching Ngannou fight as a UFC fighter, don't think he would be able to square up with someone like Dillian White. I think Dillian White's out of his league, quite frankly. But that said, Ngannou is a beast. I mean, he's huge. He can barely make heavyweight in the UFC, which I believe is a 260 cutoff. So Ngannou's a very large guy, as you can see him here with Joe Joyce. I think that people saying that he has 0 chance, I don't necessarily go that far, but I mean, then again, Dillian White is a very strong elite heavyweight boxer. I think Ngannou is a gifted fighter and has great hands for MMA. I don't necessarily give him a chance when it comes to elite boxers like Dillian White. I think Dillian White would probably knock him out with a left hook, which, by the way, I think Dillian White might have one of the best left hooks in boxing. That being said, we'll see what happens here. Moving on, we'll be talking about, quite frankly, the most insulting offer I've seen from Mike Tyson. This is just sad. I mean, $1.1 million. Really? I don't think Mike's going to be taking that, especially when you start seeing stuff like $20 million being offered at him. And even that, I think, is low for Mike Tyson right now. Mike has absolutely dominated the headlines when it comes to boxing right now, and everybody is talking about if they can get a piece of him. Now, there's even talks about the schedule for him and Holyfield 3. It looks like it's going to be July 11th, and it's going to be in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be a 4-round exhibition. This is all the info that we have right now. It looks like there's going to be some made up belt possibly for this, and it's going to be sponsored by, I guess, like some prune juice or something. I don't know. We'll see how far this goes and if this is actually all in the contract and done deal. I do think it's great that it is going to be only 4 rounds so that these guys, you know, get to kind of dip their toes back in the water and everything, and we'll see where it goes from there. But quite honestly, I'm starting to see things like Evander Holyfield talking about the fact that if Mike Tyson really goes for it and really hits him hard to the head, that it's going to be on and they're going to go really at it. It's kind of interesting to see how Evander Holyfield's also also evolving when it comes to talking about this stuff. Initially, like I said, he was talking a lot about this being exhibition for charity and just, you know, it kind of being for fun. Now it seems like he's getting quite serious as well. Him and Mike both seem to be ramping up their camps and ramping up their training. We're seeing people like Vladimir Klitschko helping out Evander Holyfield. Interested to see what happens here. And I hope, like I said before, they both take their health into consideration, but at the same time, it looks like they're going to be making some money, because if they're fighting in Saudi Arabia, I'm sure the money is going to be very interesting for both of them. Now, going on from this fight to kind of just rumors, there was this whole thing that Tyson Fury was talking about a contract with Mike Tyson. I had friends reach out actually and texting me saying, hey, did you hear about like Mike Tyson fighting Tyson Fury and stuff like that? I don't think this is ever going to happen, guys. I really don't see Tyson Fury and Mike Tyson squaring up at all, especially for any kind of serious belt or any kind of real fight. I don't think there's a boxing board out there right now that would approve Tyson Fury fighting Mike Tyson at 53 years old. I'm sorry. I know it's a very interesting idea, guys, but let's not take this too serious. I think this is mostly just for press. I think this is just Tyson Fury trying to get more press and trying to continue to have his name in the press. So I basically take it as that. I don't take it as more than that. Speaking of Tyson Fury, he does believe that WBC is going to allow him to fight Anthony Joshua before having to have the Dillian Whyte fight. I think that we all believe that this is going to happen, considering the way the WBC has treated Dillian Whyte, especially in the past with Deontay Wilder. And I don't see why not at this point. I think everyone wants to see a unified champion at heavyweight. And I think also, if you're the WBC belt, you'd rather have Tyson Fury fighting against Anthony Joshua, because if Anthony Joshua wins, he's a great spokesman for your brand, essentially, for the WBC, rather than Dillian Whyte. He's much more notable, and I think that you feel more confident in having multiple fights with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua rather than Dillian Whyte coming in and fighting Tyson Fury. So I'm not surprised to see this, and I'm not surprised to hear this, especially because I don't think Tyson Fury really wants to fight Dillian Whyte. I know that he talks about it being no big deal and being able to handle Dillian Whyte no problem. That said, I don't think he wants to risk it at all. I think he'd rather make the bigger money, which is Anthony Joshua. Speaking of Anthony Joshua, in the final story of this week, Anthony Joshua versus Pulev is looking like it's going to be a smaller venue in the UK. I don't think people care, really. I think that whether it's at Wembley Stadium or if it's at a smaller venue, we just want to see Anthony Joshua fight. There's been video coming out of Anthony Joshua training at home. He still looks like he's in amazing shape. I mean, one thing you always have to say about Anthony Joshua, whether you like him or not, is that he's always in great shape. He always looks like he's ready to fight, and whether he's in between fights or not, or training, he just always looks like he's very prepared for whatever fight he's getting into next. So with that said, I think we're going to end there. Thank you for stopping by. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.